Why, hello, friends. Welcome on into the Check Your Brain podcast. My name is Tony Mazur. Thank you for listening for free on the podcatchers such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And thank you for watching this on YouTube and Rumble and Twitter, now known as X. Still having a little trouble calling it that, but hello over there. Thank you for checking it out. There's more where all this came from over on Patreon. So subscribe at patreon.com/Tony Mazur, TonyMazur. I have a $3 tier, $5 tier, and a $10 tier, which gives you extra podcasts per week. I have a free tier as well, but you're not going to get more than one free podcast per week, which is this one. So before I get to today's guest, is a returning guest on the program. I've decided I kind of like going back into the well. Some podcasts are like, well, I already had John at one time, and it's like, yeah, but if we're talking about something that's very relevant, which this is, I figure may as well head on back to the old Rolodex and talk to my guest here in a second, but and discuss what is going on in the case of Shiloh Hendrix. Now, just for posterity, I know a lot of people have already seen this video, they've heard the video, they've heard the story, but look, you may be listening to this in the year of our Lord 2030 and may have forgotten this name, or maybe a couple of months from now. Who knows? So I have to do this for posterity. So Shiloh Hendrix is a woman from Rochester, Minnesota, who went viral about a week ago because a an alleged Somali adulterer or whatever filmed her on a playground, and she used some naughty language. Here's the video, and we'll get into the podcast and talk a little more about this and how my guest comes into this situation on a rather unfortunate note, but I think it's good to have her as reference. So here's the video of Shiloh Hendrix from last week.
Call him a nigger, the child?
The fuck you talking
Did you
about?
call the child the nigger word?
None of your fucking business.
It is my own business. You call him a nigger? Okay, why don't you have the boss to say it right now again?
Fuck you, nigger.
Okay.
Nigger.
All right, that's what you say.
You don't go digging through people's shit, you dumb fuck.
Nobody dig into your shit.
A little fucking kid just did, you dumbass.
That little kid, you call him a nigger?
Yeah.
The little child?
What if he acts like one, he's gonna...
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child, 5-year-old, a nigger, the N-word.
If that's what he's gonna act
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him.
That's what he's gonna act like.
You know, that's a hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
I don't give a shit.
Huh.
Fuck off.
Okay, we'll see about that, what the internet has to say about you.
And we'll see what the internet has to say when we check out her Give, Send, Go here in just a second. But why, after using such a naughty word that we're not allowed to use, trust me, I've heard that word a lot. It's been used on my podcast, which is how I got canceled in the first place, where a guest came on and used that particular word, and someone reported it to my bosses. But I don't need to get into that story here in right now. But why would she start having the kind of support that she has gotten in the last week now with her Give, Send, Go? Is it because people are more emboldened in Donald Trump's America? They're emboldened by their white nationalism and their racism, that they feel that it's about time that whitey's taken over right now? Maybe there's a little bit of that going on, especially based on some of the comments, but I don't think that's the real story. Now, I covered this in great detail on my podcast last week, so go check it out on Patreon. But the N-word, of course, being a third rail, the word, using the word, and somebody who is not of darker pigmentation using that word is, of course, a third rail now. But saying the N-word has always been a thing, like not just the using the phrase, not even the word that Louis C.K. said back in the day, 20 years ago, that now you're putting that word into my head and now I'm saying it in my head. But was this, if she had just used that word and went out onto a playground and used that, and somebody pulled their camera out, how much money would she have received on Give, Send, Go, GoFundMe, whatever these fundraising websites? She would have gotten $10, $20, $50 maybe at most. So why did she raise, I think it's up to 700,000 as of this? It's because of the Carmelo Anthony situation. This is purely reactionary. Austin Metcalf was a white student in Texas who was stabbed in the heart because he allegedly told this Carmelo Anthony to leave a tent, which was occupied by his team. And instead of saying, oops, I'm sorry, I had the wrong tent, it escalated to the point where he pulls a knife out and stabs Austin Metcalf. And there was nearly $500,000, I think it was over $500,000 raised, not for Austin Metcalf and his family, for Carmelo Anthony and his family. I understand needing the purpose in today's world of needing security, but $500,000? That seems to me that people were donating because he stabbed a white person. And in fact, many of the comments have said that good, it's a start, which is just obviously horrible. Plain and simple. This is not. This is basically what's going on right now, what we have seen definitely since 2020. There is a color revolution that is happening in our country right now, in our civilization and Western society that we don't realize. This has been happening, but this is built up over time. That summer of love, that summer of George in 2020. What did you think that was? Just a couple of people blowing off steam because they were stuck at home for a couple of months? Sure, a couple of people did that because of COVID and they were stuck at home with the lockdowns, but a lot of people went out in the streets and had an opportunity to be emboldened. And if they were to set something on fire, oh, well, maybe Kamala Harris and some kind of bail relief and Ben Crump will be out there to try to support people and get them out. Uh, this has been simmering for a long time for people to realize, and it's been going on for many years. I would say since probably around the time of Barack Obama when he became president. If you look at trends on Google, on the New York Times, Washington Post, the terms race, racism, white nationalism, white supremacy have skyrocketed since then, culminating with the 2012 election. And then after that, a lot of the rise of Black Lives Matter, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice. And because of that, you were seeing a lot of the knives pointed at people, mostly figurative, sometimes literal. And they started coming after nearly everybody in this rise of censorship. So it wasn't so much somebody using a bad word on a playground, it was you said something that was unfortunate, or you said something that I disagreed with and I either misinterpreted or it doesn't really matter the interpretation. I'm going all along with it. You can't say that there's an IQ difference or a bell curve, like Larry Summers once said, or Steve Saylor in a lot of his writing. Maybe you made a joke in 2009 on the website called Twitter that somebody resurfaced in 2017, 2018. Then they started getting you canceled. Maybe you were a barista at Starbucks in Philadelphia who was there sitting there and seeing two gentlemen of color who were not ordering food or ordering drinks and needed to use the bathroom. And she said, these are for paying customers only. And they said, well, that's racist, and caused a big stink about it. Or maybe you were someone who was walking your dog in Central Park and a bird watcher was harassing you and your dog, unfortunately pulls his phone out and then gets a TV show as a bird watcher. Or you could also have the unfortunate situation of calling the cops on someone for the crime of sleeping while black at Yale Law School. And this is where my guest, sorry for the long soliloquy, but I wanted to put things in the proper context to talk to my guest, the returning guest on the program, and that is Sarah Braasch. Sarah has really kind of gone to hell and back when it's come to cancellations, the woke mob. It does seem like things are kind of changing a little bit in real time. It's hard to believe where we've been in the last year or so, but unfortunately, Sarah got swept up in this in 2018, and unfortunately, for the last nearly decade, her life has been completely upended. And I mean, we can get into a little bit more in the podcast, but I wanted to have you on, Sarah, because you know what it's like to go through these figurative knives that are pointed at you and people really wanting to ruin your entire life because of the crime of what? Calling the police on someone who shouldn't be in a certain private area. We've talked about the story. We could get into it a little briefly, but welcome, Sarah. Thanks for doing the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be back. Excuse me. Yes, I think that this is It's so important to be having this conversation. Obviously, so many people are having this conversation right now in light of the sort of dueling fundraisers. And I know that I believe I might be incorrect, but I believe Carmelo Anthony's is on GoFundMe, I believe. And
That's correct.
I believe Shiloh Hendrix's is on Give, Send, Go. And I think at this time she's still, somewhat ahead, basically, quote unquote, ahead of him in terms of the amount of donations that have been raised.
And by the way, if you are on GoFundMe, there is worthwhile places you can send your money to, like Sarah Braasch and her legal and living expenses fund, because again, it's kind of tough for Sarah to go apply for a job in the field that she has been studying for several years, and they say, "Oh, you're the woman." Oh, you're the woman, regardless of the facts that came out, regardless of what's gone on. So she's had to deal with this. So if you're interested and able, please donate to her expense fund. So if you don't want to donate to Shiloh Hendrix or Carmelo Anthony, donate to Sarah Braasch.
That's right. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And I am still, in a situation where I'm still actually working on my dissertation and fully intend to get my PhD. But Yale is making it as difficult as possible for me. But I do still have support at Yale, especially within my department, the philosophy department, and at the law school as well. So I am still working towards my PhD. And so right now, I've actually, just so people sort of know where, in a nutshell, where I'm at in life. So I'm living in Austin, Texas, and I've moved into, affordable housing, and I'm just working intermittent jobs, temp jobs as what's called a document review attorney. So thank goodness that I had, my law license, and that even though there were so many attempts to get me disbarred, that they weren't able to do that, because that's how I'm keeping myself, off the streets, basically. So while I'm in that situation, I'm still trying to finish my dissertation. I'm trying to pay down a $40,000 legal bill that is still lurking. And so, any donations are just greatly appreciated. It would mean the world to me. And I still fully intend, right now, I have to get a part of my dissertation done. But then as soon as I'm done with that, I'm actually going to file a new OCR complaint, that's the Office for Civil Rights in the Department of Education, which still exists for a while. But I'm sure that, even if they do get rid of the Department of Education, that will move over to, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and it'll be under the auspices of a Harmeet Dillon, who's the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, whom I adore. We love Harmeet, and she is going after those universities for their Title VI violations. But anyway, so that's the situation I'm in. I'm still going to file a new OCR complaint against Yale. I'm actually going to ask for $1 billion in punitive damages.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? Because that's the only thing that they're going to, a university like Yale, that has become a woke DEI and CRT industry unto itself, has a 41 plus $billion endowment. The only thing they're going to respond to is just like what Trump is doing. He's going after the endowments. He's going after the federal funding. He's stripping them of the federal funding. He's going to, and he just basically, Linda McMahon at the Department of Education just sent Harvard that letter saying, don't bother to apply for federal funding because you won't get it. It's done. It's gone. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, my point is that I'm still pursuing my legal efforts against Yale. So the bulk of any donations will go to that. And that would be so, so appreciated.
So, Sarah, talk about your experience of seeing this story the last week and seeing what's happened where immediately as soon as this video's uploaded, you have the tizzy ents and all these other left-wing grifters on Twitter by saying make her famous, and then within a few minutes you have a phone number that's out there, you have an address, you have everything that's going on. Now again, things have changed in the last 7, 8 years, but you had to deal with this firsthand. What is that feeling of this story starts breaking? You're starting to get people saying, hey, this is kind of, you're in the news. Did you see you made Breitbart? You made Huffington Post? You made this, to the point where it escalates and you're getting phone numbers from random people. What's it like to go through a mass woke mob uh, casualty event? And where you are sitting there looking at your phone buzzing and saying, I have no choice, I have to shut it off, and that's still not enough.
Yeah. It's insane. It's mind-blowing. It's just like you feel like you've entered like the twilight zone. Like you can't even believe what is happening to you. You've been a completely private person your whole life, and then instantaneously you're being vilified on a global scale, including in the, fake news press. And it's terrifying, obviously. And so I and my one advisor at Yale, who it's so crazy, who is Jason Stanley. Jason Stanley, sort of the premier social justice warrior who's now fleeing the US for Canada because of Trump. But he called me in my dorm room. I didn't even realize at first what was happening to me. I didn't even realize it. And he called me in my dorm room and he was like, Sarah, you have to get out of there. You're not safe there. You know, Ijeoma Oluo just posted on Twitter your dorm room number and a picture of you and your dorm room number, like, and told her followers to come stalk you and harass you. You're not safe there. You have to get out of there. So I immediately had to move into a part of the dorm that was under construction. One of my other advisors went and got me cash and brought it to me to pay my Uber driver to take me to, these two gentlemen, I call them my surrogate dads, at a place. Thank goodness they had a place in Brooklyn, so I had a place to flee to. I was taunted by a mob while I was waiting on the curb for my Uber driver to come. And then I basically just had to just flee campus for my life. And as soon as I got to my surrogate dad's house, like they kind of took over and told me what to do, and took care of me. And because I was just in complete and utter shock. And so they basically they were like, shut down all of your social media, now, immediately. And I basically just sort of got into bed in their guest room. And I really didn't get out of that bed for like a month. I would literally go into physical shock. Like I think my body just, to protect me, just because I couldn't even process what was happening to me, just turned off. Like I was unconscious for most of that month. I couldn't even deal with what was happening to me. So I would just literally pass out.
How long in between the initial report and when everything started coming out? How much time was that in between?
I would say that I didn't. So what happened to me, the video was released, and then that notorious, Twitter race hustler, hoaxer, Sean Kane, he,
Oh, the white guy pretending to be black. That's
yes,
right.
Talcum X. So
Yes, Talcum
that's
X.
my favorite nickname for him. So he was involved in the race hoax that was perpetrated on me. And so he helped release and propagate the video all over social media. And so that actually happened. It was almost immediately, like after my encounter with the woman and with the Yale campus police, which was about 2, 3 a.m. So I didn't have any idea. I know it might sound kind of stupid, but at the time I didn't have any idea that I had been filmed. I didn't know what was going on social media. I was sending emails to the Yale campus police and to the administrators with whom I'd been dealing about the harassment that I'd been enduring in my isolated Yale dorm room at the top of this tower. And so I had no idea what was happening. It wasn't until later that afternoon when I got, like everyone else, I got this email from Yale grad school dean Lynn Cooley that basically said Sarah's like an evil racist. And I was just like, uh, my mind was blown by that because I knew that Lynn Cooley knew the exact opposite to be the truth, that she knew what I had been dealing with for months. But so anyway, but it wasn't really until Jason Stanley called me, I'm going to say that it was approximately the early evening of that day, May 8th. And he was the one who told me. He said he was like, he realized that I had no idea what was happening to me. And he was like, Sarah, you need to leave your dorm room now because you are not safe there. Do you not understand what is happening? So there was, I want to say that was early evening-ish, around 5 or 6 p.m. But yeah, it's horrifying. You feel like you've been dropped inside of a hellish nightmare. And yeah, and obviously for me, I'm in like, you know, an exponentially better place now than I was, 7 years ago now. But, and make,
That's 7 long years, though. I mean, because you had to deal with also when COVID hit, and there's already isolation, and whenever you're trying to reach out to people, people are afraid, and so that compounds on a lot of things. And I think people setting the context of what happened with you, you were just gobbled up in everything going on. So for people who remember what was going on around the college campuses, so I think it was about 10 years ago, right around this time, there was a big protest in, I believe, Missouri. And there was that woman who said that we need to get some muscle over here. And you
yeah,
were noticing a change of the college protests that were really emboldened to go out and essentially pull another Kent State, set an ROTC building on fire, and suffer virtually no consequences. There was always that feeling of, well, you don't want another Kent State to happen because we saw what happened. And the National Guard's called in, and 4 people are dead in Ohio. And then it seemed like about 10 years ago, the inmates really started running the asylum again, and they were promoted by the administration. The
that's
administration was going up and stoking a lot of the riots and protests. I think a lot of them are old Woodstock era boomers that were going like, "No, you need to do what I used to do back in my day." And then you were seeing these presidents who had to step down for the sin of what were they, microaggressions that he was using his, I forget what, maybe it was Evergreen State College where they had a day, I think it was Day Without Whites Day, and the president or the dean, I believe it was, at Evergreen State was using his hands in what some perceived a threatening
right. I
tone, a
remember that.
microaggression.
Yeah,
And it made things worse when it shouldn't. He's trying to explain things to a supposedly open-minded college audience, and instead they're the biggest conformists and they're the biggest people who do not want any type of liberal thought on a campus. And so when your situation occurred in 2018, it was just part of this perfect storm of, sure, Donald Trump may have been president that first time, but as we know, a lot of people were kind of going against him from the inside, and you still had a lot of these institutions that were from the Obama years, from the academic years of the Obama administration and before the Clinton and Bush administrations that were saying, no, you need to continue doing this. And I think a lot of that kind of got put to bed in the last probably 2 years when it came to DEI at Harvard and North Carolina, and affirmative action cases. Then certainly in the November election, which occurred, goodness gracious, that was 6 months ago. And I almost think it would have been, you think about how much worse things could be right now if Kamala Harris would have won. And I don't mean to try to make it political, but it is political. The fact that there was in the Biden administration transgenders who were, whatever anybody's preferences are, they were showing it, the stuff on the White House lawn and, I don't know, wearing dresses and mustaches and stealing luggage at airports. And I just think to myself, imagine it would have been much worse that the January 6 people are still behind bars right now, that the pro-lifers who were protesting at a Planned Parenthood are still behind bars right now, and that the people like a Sarah Braasch or an Amy Cooper, that they're still taken down by society. And then you apply that to Shiloh Hendrix, that Give, Send, Go probably would have been shut down within about an hour, maybe less than that. They probably would have gone after Elon Musk. The fact that Elon has been a savior in buying Twitter and allowing more free speech and more uncomfortable conversations like the one we're having right now, which is, again, it's not comfortable. It's not uncomfortable. It's a conversation. We should be having it. And it's really hard to believe where we've come from in the 7 years that this happened to you, that to the point where people are saying, I'm not defending her use of the N word to call to a child, but we're at this point where people have seen the Sarah Brashes and the Amy Coopers and the Shiloh Hendrix over and over again that just get swallowed up by society with with a cancellation attempt and no hope of redemption. You could do anything you want. I'm so sorry. I will do anything you want. They love having your conformity and your compliance with this, but you're never going to be recuperated in their eyes. So what's the point? What's the bother? And I think a lot of people are realizing that maybe you just don't apologize. Maybe you do put your middle finger up to these people because clearly they don't have your best interests at heart.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's why, like, I think some people were even surprised. And obviously, there's a furious debate online, especially on X right now about this. But initially, when the whole Shiloh Hendrix affair blew up, I said exactly what you just said. Of course, it's not okay to call a child an N-word. But I said, despite that, I am thrilled. I am so happy that she's just receiving this deluge of support, overwhelming support. And that I'm just like Matt Walsh has said.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yep. Matt Walsh just made a beautiful, brilliant video. And he basically said exactly what I said right away as soon as the Shiloh Hendrix affair blew up. Matt Walsh is saying the exact same thing. And I love his video and I agree with it basically 100%, which is just that, of course, it's not okay. No one thinks it's okay to call a child the N-word. No one. This is not why people are supporting Shiloh Hendrix.
Well, let me point out there probably are some people, but they're not mainstream. Why would someone like you and Matt Walsh support it? It's not because you're openly racist and so happy about it. It's more of it's time to understand the moment that we're in, and that you have a Carmelo, because this is, again, it's all reactionary to what happened with Carmelo Anthony, that people were donating anything between $25 to $2,500 by saying, good, it's a start. Good, I'm glad that this happened. Again, not to Austin Metcalf and his family, who Austin Metcalf was stabbed. We're talking about to the kid who was carrying around a knife, and a lot of his classmates said, he's been prone to violence, that there's an alleged video of him kicking a kid in the head during a basketball game. I'm not sure if it was him, but If you're going to stab someone at a track meet, it wouldn't surprise me that there was a little bit of a pattern here. Um, but again, maybe it's time that white people decided that they would collectivize a little bit, because white people traditionally do not collectivize, because Italians are different from Polish, who are different from Spaniards, from different from Germans, who are different from British and everything. So we're not necessarily a homogenous type of people. However, when the backs are against the wall and every other group gets to be tribal, a lot of white people decided either we all get to be tribal for our own, or nobody. We didn't want to be in this situation, but it's kind of driven us to this point now.
Right. Right. And the way I see it, and because I have long now also, fought back against this ludicrous term, the woke right. And I've also been like a staunch, advocate and defender for young men, especially young white men. And I always say, look, it is not, you're not woke right, because you are fighting back against the anti-white discrimination and racial animus of the woke DEI and CRT industry. You're not being racist by standing up for your federal civil rights. And so I think that I resist the idea that this is that this is just more racism on, a response of racism, of anti-Black racism as a response to anti-white racism. I resist that notion. And I don't think, I think it's actually the antithesis of tribalism, because upholding federal civil rights for one and all in a colorblind manner, that is the vision of the colorblind beloved society of MLK Jr. And I think I resist the idea that, like you said, are some people doing that? Of course, there are always going to be some people that are doing that are like, oh, you're going to cheer as a group for a Black kid who stabbed a white kid to death just because he's a Black kid who stabbed a white kid to death, and you're going to cheer for that and make him a millionaire. Well, then sure, of course, there are some people, maybe a lot of people, I won't minimize it, but who are saying, well, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to stand up, for the white person, who did something bad. But that's another aspect of this, is that the sort of the equation of Shiloh Hendrix using the N-word to, Carmelo Anthony stabbing Austin Metcalf to death is horrifying in and of itself. I feel strongly, my opinion just coincides almost exactly with Matt Walsh, in that I feel really strongly that the reason why the vast majority of people are supporting Shiloh Hendrix, and why I support Shiloh Hendrix, and why do I wish that, people had come to my defense like this back in the day and gave me $500,000? Of course. But that's not going to happen for me. I'm hoping to get my not million, but $1 billion, from suing.
You deserve every penny with what you've gone through with your family and everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But I do feel strongly that the vast majority of people are supporting Shiloh Hendrix for the right reasons, for the same reasons that Matt Walsh is saying he supports Shiloh Hendrix, for the reasons why I'm saying I support Shiloh Hendrix. And it's because of, and Amy Cooper, I consider to be my sister now. I love her like a sister. We've been supporting each other, for years. And I've been making her aware of what's happening, and making her aware of just the deluge of support and love for her in the wake of what happened to Shiloh Hendrix. But like people are supporting her, I believe the vast majority of people for the right reasons, which is to end cancel culture and it's to end the Karen gone wild blood sport and it's to end the BLM living while black race hoax. This is why people are supporting, I believe, the vast majority of people are supporting Shiloh Hendrix. And that's why it thrills me because it's not just about the individual lives, innocent lives being destroyed. And there's been a number of suicides too, but it's not just about Amy Cooper. It's not just about me. It's not just about City Bike Karen, Sarah Comrie, if you remember that one. It's not just about the individual people. It's about that we are destroying ourselves as a society by
Yeah.
by engaging in this anti-white racist monstrosity, which is what the multi-billion-dollar woke DEI and CRT industry is.
And by the way, you should point out when you mention that who is behind a lot of this anti-white sentiment? White people themselves.
Yeah,
You don't
that's
see this with other groups where, again, the tribalism, the collectivism is, hey, look, yeah, maybe this person did the wrong thing, but we understand that we don't want to see this. So a lot of this, who's part of this, are fellow white people. As I mentioned, Tizzy Ent, I can't stand him. Apparently, he's an alleged pornographer. Um, and I think the incentive structure has changed over time where you can I guess it's okay now because you do have Matt Walsh's, you do have Michael Knowles, you do have Tucker Carlson who would come out and say, yeah, you know what? I'm going to support this person. Not necessarily support what they say, but I'm going to support them and I don't care what you say. Because how did it get to a point where you have an alleged pedophile, a Somali immigrant,
yes.
who's at a playground who does not have his child there? It wasn't his kid that he was filming there who was on the playground. So why is a guy who's had issues with underage girls on a playground and then you have someone like Carmelo Anthony who is I have to say alleged because he hasn't been gone to court yet and been tried yet, but an alleged murderer and stabbing someone. I think a lot of people woke up and said, wait a second, what is worse in the grand scheme of things? Using a naughty word like the N word, stabbing someone in the heart in cold blooded murder, or being an illegal alien pedophile? What is worse? And as society since the 1990s, it's been it's still worse to be a racist. You would rather be a rapist than a racist in society. And I'm like, wait, what? Saying a word is worse than actions? Apparently that was the case. And I think a lot of people have finally woken up and said, you know what? I'm tired of feeling like getting canceled. I saw the golden casket for George Floyd. I finally saw what happened with the autopsy report, that there weren't crushed bones, that there wasn't asphyxia that happened, that it seemed that Derek Chauvin has been sent to prison under false pretenses, which means he deserves a fair trial. I think all of these cases of people of white people afraid to speak up because they don't want to appear in their in group, their friend group, as, oh, that's the Karen who said something about George Floyd. Oh, that's the Karen who said something about Sarah Braasch. Oh, that's the Karen who said something about Shiloh Hendrix. And I think what's gone on now is people are like, yeah, I said it. I don't care that I said it. And what are you going to do to me? To send me to HR? And sure, that could still happen. There's still that threat. But I think if you took away that threat, I think more people would actually sound off about this. I think things have really changed a lot. And the feeling of in liberal postmodern society of saying, well, you, sir, you, ma'am, are a racist, and you just sit back and wait for the groveling. And the groveling isn't happening now. And that's why you're seeing a lot of videos on TikTok of people being very upset that Shiloh Hendrix has made all this kind of money. I don't even think it's as much as that she said a word. It's that she has raised so much money. And in their way, it's she said it because now she thinks she has a free pass to use that word. No, you completely missed the point of that. And at this time, I'll pull it up right now as of this recording. She is all the way up to $717,000 of a million
Wow.
at this point. Let me refresh because I'm sure it's gone. Yep, it's gone up. It's up to 718 since we've been doing this podcast. So
Wow.
it's amazing. Again, you should if you're going to send any money, you should send it to Sarah. But I don't know. I guess if you had more money and you wanted to just make it rain like Lil Wayne in a strip club, go for it. But I just it just feels like things are changing. I don't know if it's for the better. I don't know if it's for the worse, but it does feel like things have changed since the year of our Lord 2018, and even since I got canceled in 2022. It just seems like this is a different world now. That now the for example, I had a comedian on about a year ago named Mary Jane Murphy, and she got her couple of her gigs canceled because, again, you're a comedian who's in the New York area, you're probably going to be around transgender individuals. And she's like, I am a woman, I have a young daughter, and I don't want to see grown men who identify as women go into the bathroom when my daughter's there, and I certainly don't want to see grown men playing in women's sports and beating the crap out of them. And they're like, sorry, Mary Jane, usually you're not allowed to go to our shows anymore. We had you on the bill, but we're taking you off. There are too many complaints or too many problems. And it seems like that debate is almost now old hat. It's outdated because now people are saying, yeah, we can do this. And it really does feel like an election changed everything. And it changed the incentive structure for people to finally go, we're done with this. We're done with this cancel culture. We're done with this censorship model. And we're certainly not paying any attention other than James Lindsay and Konstantin Kisin to whatever this term woke right is.
You are exactly right. And thank God Trump and Vance won. Like, and I think I think Trump was just saying, like, if Kamala Harris had won for some reason, um, or had managed to steal the election somehow, that it would be the end of the America. It would be the end of the US. And I completely believe that. I just, every night, basically, I just thank God that Trump and Vance won. I thank God. And I think that, getting rid of all of this, and it truly is it's just an anti-white racist monstrosity, and also anti-Semitic, this entire just, at this point, multi-billion, maybe even trillion-dollar industry in the aggregate, on a global scale, which is just like of, vilifying whites and attacking white people. And so that's why I wanted to make this point. I was thinking about this while you were talking, is that in a weird way, it's a really good thing. It's almost better that Shiloh Hendrix did something, quote unquote, like explicitly racist by using the N-word. In a weird way, that's almost better, because when you think about what happened to me and what happened to Amy Cooper, and for me in particular, well, Amy Cooper was a straight up race hoax too, and I have a lot more to say about that some other time. And for me as well, like, what happened is that Yale wanted a piece of this pie, this multi-billion-dollar woke DEI and CRT industry pie, but didn't have enough anti-Black racism. There wasn't so many of these hoaxes were perpetrated, and because there wasn't enough anti-Black racism around to, to justify, this multi-billion-dollar industry. And so Yale actually perpetrated the hate crime hoax against me. And if you look at like the video of me, I don't do anything that's racist. Amy Cooper doesn't do anything that's racist. People wanted to try to say, because she said African American man when she was on the phone with the police, she was just offering a description. So want to say that was racist. But the thing is that what I've always said is that it doesn't matter I always say, even if I had done something egregiously, ridiculously, ludicrously racist on that video, I did nothing. But even if I had done something, what was done to me is still evil. What was done to me was so disproportionate, undermines our legal system, undermines any notion of due process. Just you don't destroy people. Even if someone thinks 100% I did something horribly racist in the video of me, you don't like we have hope. I thought and had hoped that we had moved beyond the Salem witch trials. Like, this is not the way to behave as a civilized society. We don't, we don't, form mobs anymore. Who did that? And lynch people and tried to destroy them and unperson them. Who did that? The KKK did that. So, and it's like, and now we're bringing it back, and it's okay because we're lynching white people and not black people. We're destroying white people. So in a weird way, it's almost a good thing, because I didn't do anything racist. Amy Cooper didn't do anything racist. And in a weird way, it's almost a good thing that the case that we're using to make this point, that we're going to bring down the Karen Gone Wild blood sport. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to do these witch hunts anymore and these woke Twitter mobs to destroy people without due process, to destroy people who have committed no crime. And Shiloh Hendrix committed no crime.
No, I mean, you don't have to like the word she used,
He
but
didn't commit a crime.
it's not a crime. And here's the other thing that's interesting. It takes a little bit of time for this stuff to settle in. But it kind of this whole thing reminds me of Trump in general, the Trump movement from 10 years ago. That for how many years, and I was a Republican raised, and I drifted away because I didn't like the state of the Republican Party. I felt that they were the Washington Generals, that they were controlled opposition. They win an election here and there, but for the most part, it just seemed like that uniparty, and the Republicans were just like, they'll take some L's, and that they were fine with being called a racist, even though they liked John McCain and they liked Mitt Romney, except for those little bit of time when they ran for president. And I remember sitting there in 2012 going, because I voted for Ron Paul that time, and I said, you said Mitt Romney, the most milquetoast candidate, is a monster? Well, then you know what? In 2016, we need to give you a monster then. And that's kind of what happened, is that Donald Trump was a repudiation, not just against the Democrats, but against other Republicans too. And where I'm going with this is sometimes you need to bludgeon somebody to wake them up and shake them and say, hey, all that time when you didn't defend Sarah Braasch and Amy Cooper for these situations, now you have an example of somebody that, under different circumstances a couple of years ago, Shiloh Hendrix would have been canceled.
Right.
Shiloh Hendrix would be like you. And Shiloh Hendrix would make only $30 on a GoFundMe, and then it would get shut down, and then she'd be destitute and her whole life ruined. Why is her life not exactly ruined? Because you gals were the trailblazers before. And it sucks saying that, because you're not really getting anything yet. Hopefully that $1 billion.
No accolades for blazing the trail of never apologizing.
Yeah, you don't apologize, and sometimes those cancellations, and that's why I had to have that soliloquy at the beginning of this podcast to bring it up in the context of the woman from Starbucks. That, again, she wasn't wearing a red MAGA hat. She was one of those allegedly blue-haired baristas you would see at Starbucks, that at every Starbucks, with piercings and tattoos everywhere. She's not a racist. She didn't wake up that morning going, boy, I can't wait to harass some black people today.
Right.
Don't take that out of context for anybody watching and listening to that. But she didn't have that. And yet it all happened around that same time. And so eventually these examples had to have been made for Sarah Braasch had to crawl for Shiloh Hendrix to walk. And now maybe we do enter a new phase where you're not going to just sit around, call people a racist and go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Oh my goodness, where's Jesse Jackson? I need to kiss up to him. Where's Ben Crump? Where is who are the new grifters? The
Al
Ibram X
Sharpton.
Kendies. And who's the there's a couple others. The Nicole Hannah Jones from the 1619 Project, that we need to invite them. And since then, you notice many of them have been discredited. That Ibram Kendi, well, I forgot what his real name is. That didn't he get $30 million and then squandered all that money? You don't hear anything from Nicole Hannah Jones anymore. So
Nothing.
hopefully things are changing for the better, and that these examples have been made, and that we're entering a new realm where we are going to be a little bit more unapologetic, and we can get to a point where we're not apologizing just based on me waking up in the morning and being white.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is exactly why I'm so happy that, Shiloh Hendrix has raised these funds. Do I hope that, some of that will bleed will bleed onto me? Of course I do. I hope that, and then that's actually, and I've been talking to Amy Cooper about this, is that there have been, posts this, really great guy, and I think that he writes for like The Blaze and The Federalist, and I think he's a journalist. Adam Johnston, he made a post. His first post, his top post, is about Amy Cooper. And he's saying exactly what I've been saying, which is just that remember Amy Cooper, because that's why it matters that Shiloh Hendrix has raised, $500,000, is because of Amy Cooper. And his post got, I think it's up to like 1.2 million views. And so, of course, I had to tell Amy about that. And then he posted about me as well, which I'm so thrilled. And then I think, my knight in shining armor. I just love him so much. Wilfred Riley. He's, a wonderful academic. And he's I believe it's
Somewhere in Kentucky, I believe.
Kentucky State, which I believe is also a historically Black college, and he's been my champion, my knight in shining armor. I couldn't love him anymore. My greatest defender, for years now. And so he actually, and he's great friends with Matt Walsh and also with Ben Shapiro. And Ben Shapiro, of course, disagrees with Matt Walsh. Like, he thinks it's wrong to have Shiloh Hendrix be the face of the backlash against, a wokeness. And so Wilfred thinks so too. Wilfred Riley thinks so too. But I just love Wilfred Riley so much. So he posted, and it hasn't had the same response, but it's had a wonderful response, where he basically has said exactly what you said, where he said, if you want to donate to someone to make a statement against cancel culture, to make a statement against the Karen Gone Wild blood sport and the BLM Living While Black race hoax, and these race grifters who are filming people and then throwing it up online and saying, oh, make them famous, let's destroy them, let's ruin them, let's get them fired, get them disbarred, get them expelled. And so Wilfred Riley said, if you want to make that statement, he said, there's like 20 plus real Karen cases where white women were innocent white women were unfairly cast as, genocidal villains and had their lives destroyed, including Sarah Braasch. Like, she's lucky to still be around and, to still be kicking and screaming. And so he said, why don't you donate to Sarah Braasch, donate to Amy Cooper. And then people were saying, no, we should start a GoFundMe for Amy Cooper. And so I love Wilfred, and I talked to him about it. Like, he knows how I feel. Excuse me. He knows that I actually, my thinking is in line with Matt Walsh rather than Wilfred's and rather than Ben Shapiro's. But I just I couldn't love Wilfred anymore. And than I do. He's been so amazing to me.
It's interesting because it seems like people are just figuring this stuff out now about cancel culture in the last, because there have been many in comedy, and many are like, oh, they're canceling Louis C.K. But it seems like the normal everyday person finally sees this because they got called to HR because of a Facebook post. They had something like this happen to them now. And for people to think that this stuff has really just started and they're waking up, it's going to take some time. Um, when James Lindsay, founder of the term woke right, says, see, if we just go back to the good old days of the 1990s when everybody got along, no one saw color. And I'm thinking, you are naive because there was a little thing called the LA riots that occurred, and Reginald Denny was pulled out of his truck and kicked to almost death. And then you had a couple of years later of many in the black community cheering on O.J. Simpson being acquitted when it was pretty obvious that there were some inconsistencies in that case and that he may probably have been the murderer. Now that he's gone, I think we could stop saying allegedly, but um, to say that we lived in this utopia in the 90s is just it's short-sighted, and it's I don't know, it just seems like you're lying to people that this has been going on and that tribalism has been happening for a long time, that to course correct, it's going to take more than just Shiloh Hendrix and a GoFundMe to the family of Carmelo Anthony. It's going to take a couple of more things of people waking up and noticing these things popping up. So hopefully that is where we are heading going forward. Where again, we have to keep saying this. Sure, that's a nasty word that woman used there. People, for the most part, people are not donating to her because that gives her a pass of being a white woman using that certain word. Some people may feel that way, but most people are donating because they're tired of this. They're tired of the double standards. They're tired of feeling like we have to repent for the color of our skin, whereas other people who do other races, other tribes who do much worse stuff happen to either get away with things. I mean, Carmelo Anthony's bond was set from $1 million to 250,000 for what? There was no explanation, but the judge happened to be black, happened to be a little more sympathetic towards the Anthony family. And when you realize these forms of government and these things are stacked against a lot of people, it's time for people to wake up. And again, it's not so much that you collectivize and you start chanting in the streets and start the Fourth Reich or anything. It's just more so you gotta protect the people around you, and instead of caring so much in this egalitarian mindset of I need to care about people 4 or 5 thousand miles away rather than my neighbor, maybe we should start with our family and our neighbor and then branch out from there. I don't know, it's just it's an interesting time, and I feel that things are a changing. And again, I don't know if it's exactly for the better yet or for the worse, but I hope if you have an opportunity, if you're looking to donate money, if you want to donate to Shiloh Hendrix, sure, go for it. If you want to donate to Carmelo Anthony, well, yeah, it's your money. I can't tell you what to do, but if you are going to patronize somebody who has really gone through hell and back and to hell and back, donate to Sarah Braasch. She's a four-time guest now of the Check Your Brain podcast, and anytime I can hear from her and her expertise. Next time, hopefully, we could talk about Harvard, and I know you got into a little bit discussing the endowments and getting rid of DEI and all the fights and everything going on because you have a lot of that experience. But yeah, one of these days I'm just gonna have to have you on. We'll talk about anything but cancellation and that stuff, and actually discuss your background and expertise. But I feel that I wanted to have you on because of nobody else really know, only a few people really know what it's like to go through those first couple of hours of cancellation and doxing, that the normal person who just sees this because they read it online somewhere doesn't realize what you go through and how your world is completely turned upside down.
That's right. That's exactly right. But I'm so happy that you're still here fighting the good fight, and so am I. And Amy Cooper is too. She's a little less public than us, but she's with us too.
I'm glad. I'm glad she's doing better and seeing this all from afar and hoping things are course correcting going forward. Well, Sarah, hey, thank you so much for doing the podcast. I will talk to you soon, and thank you again. Thank you as always for doing this and coming back for the fourth time.
I just loved it. I think this was a really great and very necessary conversation right now.
And very timely because I don't know with the way our society is. If we talked about this next week, people are like, Shiloh, who, what? Oh, I think I remember that. Shiloh, that sounds like a steakhouse I would go to. And it's like, so yeah, I had to have you on. I talked to you yesterday to try to get you on, and so we're putting this out here on Wednesday. So thank you everybody for watching the show and listening. If you want more, go to Patreon at patreon.com/Tony Mazur for $3, $5, $10, however you want. I'm not hurting for money. I kind of do this as a labor of love and try to get the message out. If you are looking to donate money, again, go to Sarah's page over on GoFundMe. Go search her name. It's SarahBraasch. So go check her out. And if you are interested in sending her a couple of bucks here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And yeah, I'll be back with you next Wednesday with another free podcast for the Check Your Brain podcast. And again, Patreon, I'll probably have something by the weekend. I'm sure there's going to be 27,000 other things I can talk about between now and then by the time we get to Friday. So thank you, everybody, and have yourselves a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.